Sony just announced and is soon to release the a6700, their newest APS-C alpha hybrid camera. I did not get one, of course, but I do have the FX30, and seeing as these two cameras are very similar in terms of capabilities, they share the same sensor, they share the same processor, I thought I would give you a little bit of a rundown, a breakdown, a comparison if you are in the market for one of these two cameras and can't decide which one to get. I've been using the FX30 for about 4 or 5 months. I can't remember exactly when I got it, but I really enjoy it. Even though it's APS-C and I have full-frame Sony cameras, I don't mind. I think that the APS-C cameras have a lot of advantages, and I just enjoy this camera. I like using it, and I feel like the a6700 is going to be a great camera for a lot of people. What am I saying? Don't get hung up on the whole APS-C versus full frame. Don't get full frame envy. If you can't make great images on an APS-C camera, then the problem is you and not the camera. So don't worry about it. Get what you can afford and get what you like. I think the comparison or the choice between these two cameras can be pretty cut and dry. There's a lot of like really clear differentiations between them and who would benefit the most from which camera. Let's try to break it down as simply as possible. The a6700 is obviously a hybrid camera. As a photography camera, it is much, much more capable than the FX30. Even though image quality-wise, they should be essentially the same, you get way more features and capabilities as a photo camera in the a6700. So if you prioritize photography at all, even as a hobbyist shooter, then you should definitely go for the a6700. The FX30 is very handicapped in terms of photography. It is single shot only, so there's no burst shooting mode in the FX30. There's also no mechanical shutter. If you have fast moving subjects, things that are moving across and you're trying to pan to keep up with them, then things in the frame will bend. Also, certain types of lights out in the environment might introduce some banding into your shot because of that electronic shutter. The a6700 does have a mechanical shutter, so you can either use the mechanical shutter or the electronic shutter, but you won't have any of those issues if you run into those scenarios with the a6700. Not only that, of course, it has burst shooting mode, so if you just hold that shutter down, it's going to continuously rattle off multiple shots until it fills up the buffer and slows down. That's really all I wanted to mention in terms of photography. If that's all you really need to know, then there you go. I think it's very clear which one is the better photography camera. The rest of this video, I really want to focus on the differences between video specs, video shooting between the two cameras. Each one has distinct advantages and different features. So even though they share the same sensor and the same processor, and they share a lot of the same video capabilities, each one has a couple of things that the other one can't do. And before I get into all that, I think it also kind of breaks down very simply in terms of who should get which one or who should prioritize which one. People who are solo content creators, if you're creating content for yourself and by yourself, then I think the a6700 makes a lot of sense. A lot of the limitations that the a6700 has as a video camera probably won't come into play as much for that use case. If you are a professional videographer who gets paid by other people to make content for them, then I think the FX30 is most likely a better choice for you. Both shoot 4K 24, 4K 30 with no crop, both shoot 4K 60, and then both shoot 4K 120 with a heavy crop. What happens with that 4K 120 mode is instead of downsampling from that bigger 20-something megapixels, 6K resolution, downsampling that into 4K, it doesn't do that in 4K 120. Instead, it just crops into 3840 by 2160 worth of pixels in the sensor. So you're getting that full resolution, but that's all you're getting. So it's no longer downsampling. That's why there's such a heavy crop when you go into 4K 120 on both cameras. The FX30 has distinct physical advantages as a video shooter. It has an internal fan, so there's very few scenarios where you will run into any overheating problems with the FX30, whereas the a6700 does not have a fan, so it's just cooled by the heat sink in the camera and whatever ambient airflow is in the environment. And I have seen multiple tests from other YouTubers already that indicate that you will run into overheating problems with the a6700 if you're trying to record a single take for extended periods of time. The FX30 is a bigger camera physically. It's the same size as the FX3. It's basically the same body. With that, you're going to get a full-size HDMI port, whereas the a6700 has micro HDMI. Full-sized HDMI is going to be more reliable, more robust, less likely to break. I think that advantage can be a little bit overblown, but if you do want to rely on that HDMI cable on either camera, I'd really recommend getting some sort of clamp. If you're going to be, moving the camera around with the HDMI plugged in, you really want to protect that so you don't break the cable and you don't break the port on the camera, but the full-size one is going to be better. The FX30 also allows you to record raw video over that HDMI, whereas the a6700 does not have external RAW capabilities. And I've made a video about the FX30 and external RAW, so if you want to know more about that, how it works and some of the limitations, then check out that video and I'll link it here. The FX30 has dual card slots, both CF Express Type A slots and SD card slots, whereas the a6700 has only one SD card slot. That's advantageous for the FX30 for a couple reasons. You can record to both card slots simultaneously to have a backup, which can be super handy if you're doing event type shooting, weddings, etc. Or if you're doing really long takes, you can actually set that to relay record, so when one card fills up, it will automatically switch over to the second card and you won't have any gap in your recording. CF Express card slot is not super necessary for these cameras. There's a couple modes that are available in the FX30 for video that require the CF Express card slot. As a photography camera, I think that you are kind of missing out without that CF Express card slot in terms of how many continuous shots you can take before the buffer fills up, but you just don't have it in the a6700. The FX30 has Cine EI mode and the a6700 doesn't. If you don't know what Cine EI is, I have a very detailed video explaining how, what, and why, and I also have another video explaining does it even matter. So check those out if you're interested. In a nutshell, Cine EI is just a workflow in terms of how to expose your image. It doesn't change the quality of the image in any way, shape, or form. So like I said, kind of leading off this section, in terms of image quality, both cameras should be essentially identical. The FX30 has the video shooting menu that puts all of the most needed features for shooting video into just 2 menu pages, and it also allows you to display all of the info on the black bars above and below the image that you're monitoring so that nothing is really overlaying the screen. So it just kind of clears it up and it helps you sort of frame up your shot without any distractions or complications. The latest firmware for the FX30 added a couple of new shooting modes that are not available in the a6700. DCI 4K, which I am actually filming in currently, and True 24p. So instead of shooting at 23.976, you can actually shoot in a flat 24 frames per second. It essentially, in my opinion, doesn't matter, but you can do that. And with that 24p mode, you can also shoot in 48 frames per second in S&Q. The FX30 comes in 2 flavors, body only and one with the XLR audio top handle, which is the one that I got. I really enjoy the functionality of the audio top handle. I'm using it right now. It allows you to record XLR audio directly into camera, so you don't need a separate audio recorder and then to sync up in post. Sony does offer the K3M XLR adapter, which gives you the same functionality, and it slots right into the MI shoe in their cameras, but it's not a handle. So that's essentially going to make it difficult to have a handle on the camera if that's something that you like to utilize. Other advantages for video for the FX30 is that it has tally lights, and you can see that you're recording by looking at the tally light in the front of the camera. It also has a red ring around the record button, and then there's also a tally light on the back of the camera. So you can definitely tell that you're recording on the FX30. The a6700, like all the other Sony cameras, has the option to have a little red outline around the LCD screen, in addition to the little red dot that shows up and the record on the LCD. But those are all focused on the LCD screen, whereas the FX30 has physical lights on it. I think those are all the advantages of the FX30 over the a6700 for video. So let's talk about a couple of the advantages that the a6700 has that the FX30 doesn't. It has the new AI chip that Sony introduced with the A7R5. With that AI chip, you get even more advanced autofocus algorithms and more autofocus modes than you get in the FX30. So even though the FX30 has eye tracking for humans animals and birds in video. The a6700 has like insect tracking, and I think it has inanimate object tracking as well. The FX30 has fantastic autofocus, but the a6700 has more fantastic autofocus that also allows you to do some cool things with cropping and reframing. If you're filming yourself or even somebody else and you don't have somebody to operate the camera, but you want to move around in the frame, there is a mode that will essentially follow you and crop and reframe by itself. So that's pretty cool. That's in the a6700. It's not on the FX30. The last major advantage in terms of content creation that the a6700 has over the FX30 is in live streaming. All of Sony's latest cameras can live stream, so you just plug in USB into the port on the camera and then into your computer, so you don't need a capture card. FX30, I think, is capped at 4K 15 frames per second, which is stupid, but you can do 1080p up to 30 frames per second, I think, whereas the a6700 can shoot in 4K 30. So that'll be a distinct advantage in terms of live streaming for the a6700. The other major difference is the bodies of the camera. Obviously, the a6700 is a smaller body, but it does include an EVF. The FX30, as I mentioned, is a bigger body, but it does not have an EVF. I personally like having an EVF as an option, but it's just not there in the FX30. It is in the a6700. The a6700 has an EVF, but the LCD screen is lower resolution than the one that's on the FX30. I think it's about a 1.2 million dot LCD, which is pretty standard for Sony cameras. The FX30, on the other hand, got one of the higher resolution LCDs that Sony puts on cameras for some reason, and it's over 2 million dots. In practice, I don't know that it's that big a difference. I think more importantly is how bright they get, and I don't know that there's a big difference between brightness. The a6700 has a physical mode selector switch, which is really cool. You can go from photo to video to S&Q mode with a little switch. The FX30 requires that you go into the menu to make that switch, or I think you can program it to one of the custom buttons on the camera. The FX30 also has a zoom rocker where the on-off switch is typically on the alpha cameras, so you can use the Sony power zoom lenses and zoom in and out with that rocker on the camera. You can also program that to work with clear image zoom. The bigger size of the FX30 comes in handy. Obviously it has fans in it, but it's also probably a little bit more comfortable to hold for people with bigger hands especially, but it's also going to be heavier. So the a6700 is going to be smaller and lighter, so pros and cons either way. The last major difference, and probably the most important one, at least for many people, is going to be the price. The a6700 body only is retailing for $1,500 US, $1,498. The FX30 body only is $1,800, so $300 less for the a6700. You can obviously pocket that extra $300, or you can use that to invest into other items that you might need. The FX30 also has the audio top handle option, and that one is $2,200. So quite a bit more expensive. If you wanted to get the K3M module and pair that with the a6700, that combo is going to set you back about $2,100. The K3M is usually $600. As I mentioned, I think it's overpriced, and I probably wouldn't spend $600 on that audio module by itself. I would just get a separate audio recorder. I hope that helps. Happy shopping, and once shopping is done, happy shooting. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you know where to go. As always, I appreciate you watching the video, and maybe I'll see you in another one. Oh, I forgot to hit play.